This is about democracy. In the past, I've spent some time thinking about democracy. I believe it comes to us from the Greeks, but I don't think they had a true democracy. They weren't that rash, that crazy. But because it comes to us from the ancient Greeks, we think of it as an ideal, and of course, in practice, it is anything but that. And we see, really, every day, how far it is from an ideal social organization. And that makes it very easy to disparage it, to lose sight of its value. De Tocqueville wrote his great book in praise of democracy, or at least he was promoting it as best he could, fully cognizant of its many drawbacks. But he was favoring it because he was also fully aware of the bloody French Revolution and then the even more devastating rule of Napoleon. Having had his fill of that, de Tocqueville said that democracy is our last best chance. And democracy in America was the great experiment, the ultimate test case. Charles Dickens thought it was a flop. Democracy in America is now like a worn-out suit. It's in tatters. There's very little of the ideal left to believe in, maybe only the notion of the ideal itself. As a way of doing things, democracy is foolish. It's wasteful. It's almost unbelievably inefficient. It's frequently counterproductive. It's false, deceitful, and duplicitous, not to say maddening, and its emissaries, the politicians, as de Tocqueville knew, are a wild mix of clowns, perverts, sly manipulators, extremely smooth talkers, grifters, skunks, weasels, detestable, deplorable, jabbering chimps, liars, thieves, and lazy bums. And all of these pose as finely tailored dignitaries of eminence, figures of authority, deserving of not just our respect, but our steadfast admiration as well. Poor old democracy, the trampled ideal. But there is also this. The other day, while on a walk, I was crossing a busy street. In front of me, a semi-truck with a trailer was turning right. He paused and waited while I completed my passage across the street. I gave him a nod and a wave of recognition of his courtesy. Because he could have turned in front of me and there would have been nothing I could do about it. He could have ignored me completely or laughed at my helpless plight, having to wait while he completed his slow, lengthy turn, stranded out in the middle of the crosswalk. And it would have been completely within his right, as well as perfectly legal, for him to make that turn. But he didn't, and he didn't, in part, I think, because we live in a democracy. And a democracy, at its root, at heart, has a belief in the importance of the individual, who may not be the strongest part of an interaction, as on that street. In a country ruled by a dictator, the truck makes that turn and the pedestrian waits. The pedestrian is used to waiting. People living in a dictatorship or some form of autocracy are trained to be docile. They don't really count. They don't expect respect, especially whenever they come in contact with anyone connected in any way to the ruling class. A banana republic is comprised largely of second bananas. The people expect only that they will be allowed to live in peace so long as they never dispute the ones in power. The people have no power, but they are allowed to live, and if they do not interfere with any public matter, they will not be beaten, tortured, jailed, or killed. That's what life is like under those regimes, so fundamentally different from democracy. And if we have never lived under an iron hand, we can't possibly know what it's like to be constantly inferior, nor can we appreciate the glory of democracy, in which a person is free to do whatever they choose, so long as they don't break the law, and so long as the law is just. Democracy is many awful things, but democracy is not cruel. It stops short of that. The genius of democracy, de Tocqueville knew it, is that power is divided and shared in so many ways that no single person or even a group is allowed to prevail. It is the very stupidity that is built into the system that is its salvation. It is only when we see the bitter conflict and deep divisions that I begin to fear that even the socially therapeutic form of government known as democracy can't succeed, and we must hash out our differences with weapons, not words, as we did in the prolonged tragedy of the Civil War.